In this video, I want to talk about time management rules to live by. These are just rules of thumb that are gonna make life easier. Rather than having to decide every single time something comes up around time management, you can use these rules as a fallback. Do or don't, but decide which. So there's this state that I fall into sometimes that I call lingering. So for example, I might wake up, feel really heavy, feel really demotivated, feel really lacking in energy. And instead of deciding, okay, today's gonna be a day of self-care, I sit in this state of indecision of should I rest or should I work? Instead of fully leaning into resting, I'm guilt resting. So I might be doing something that would be considered self-care, but the whole time I'm feeling guilty about the fact that I'm not working. Instead of fully leaning into working, I might do a little bit here and there, but nothing that you could actually call productive. So regardless, I feel guilty about not working. Something that I say to myself in these moments is commit to the bit. That phrase doesn't really make sense in this context, but what I really mean is if you're going to rest, commit to the bit. Rest in full. Don't guilt rest, no sneaking in emails. That's not rest. Make your room so cozy, sit with your Netflix show, with your book, chuck on a candle, lean fully into the rest. And on the other hand, if for some reason working made more sense for my mental health, commit to the bit, lean fully into working, book a focus mate, get some accountability, turn off your phone, commit to the bit. More often, we sit in that state of indecision of should I do that or should I do that? And instead of deciding, we just sit in this lingering state, and it's a bigger waste of time than just making a decision. Do not do more today than you can fully recover from tomorrow. Something that I've noticed about myself, it's kind of a pattern, is that if I do the most one day, like I go over and above, it's usually gonna be matched with a day where I feel like I can do the least. It's like this natural flow. Kind of like how if you spent a whole day working out at the gym, the next day you're probably gonna be sore and it's gonna be hard to even walk. If you exert a ton of mental energy one day and you work from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., it's pretty unreasonable to expect yourself the next day to be able to give a lot of energy. When you do more today than you can fully recover from tomorrow, your body and your mind are gonna unconsciously rebel. You might feel brain fog, demotivated, uninterested. It's like forced recovery. Decide how much energy is reasonable to spend in one day. Stick with that limit. Manage your repulsion sooner rather than later. One of the laws of resistance is that the more that we avoid something, the greater the resistance becomes. Therefore, every time we put something off, the more difficult it becomes to do. You know when your brain reminds you like, oh, I really need to book that appointment. Initially, you're just like, oh yeah, note that down, gotta get that done. Then your mind starts reminding you of it regularly because you haven't gotten it done for whatever reason. Soon, you start to avoid booking the appointment. Soon after that, you start to avoid even thinking about booking the appointment because whenever your mind reminds you of it, you feel guilty. You can call it resistance, you can call it repulsion. It's just that feeling of like, ugh, I don't want to think about that. Hence this rule of time management, which is manage repulsion early. When we avoid taking action, it doesn't reduce resistance, it increases it. Even worse, when we judge our avoidance, which is what most of us do, it just perpetuates it even further. To manage your resistance, firstly, learn not to judge it. It's natural, it's normal, it's human. Every single person watching this has experienced it, and learn to engage with it. The more you resist something, the more repulsive it becomes, the more you resist it. It's like this endless cycle. If you're like, I have no idea how to manage my resistance, I have a whole video called How to Do Hard Things where I talk all about what to do when you're resisting something. I'm gonna have that link down in the description below. This video was sponsored by Squarespace, and creating a website was something that I definitely resisted doing for a long time because I was like, so many steps, so much involved, but with a tool like Squarespace, it makes it really easy. You can create functional and beautiful websites in really short periods of time with absolutely no coding experience. You can use a website to sell products, to feature your portfolio, to create content, to create blogs, to even have a little online resume, or to just have a website for yourself. Something I have on my website, which is really easy to do with Squarespace, is all of my most recent Instagram pictures, and they're updated automatically. This is super easy to build into your website with Squarespace. Also, if you've been meaning to create some kind of membership area, that's something that you can do with Squarespace with the website that you already have, or you can create a whole new website for it if that's your preference. And you can use any of their easy, simple to use templates to build your Squarespace membership site. Squarespace is flexible for absolutely any kind of website, so small businesses, creators, artists, designers, coaches, whatever you are, you can build your website with Squarespace. Click the link below, squarespace.com/Michelle, /MichelleB and use the code MichelleB to get 10% off of your first purchase. Once again, squarespace.com/MichelleB to get 10% off of your first purchase. When you're in limbo, clear the decks. I can remember so many times when I've been like, God, I have so much to do. I'm so overwhelmed. And then I have just blindly started just doing things. I've learned that when I'm in that state of limbo, when I'm in that state of overwhelm, I am far better off clearing the decks, prioritizing, and then getting started rather than just starting blindly. That's something I always struggled with because a lot of people talk about having a bias towards action. So like, just start, just do. So I'd be like, okay, well, I just need to start doing things. I've realized over time that a bias towards action can really help when you're thinking about your goals, when you're thinking about your vision, with the bigger things that you want to do in life. But a bias towards action in your daily nitty gritty isn't the best thing for you. Prioritizing is the best thing for you. So when my head feels messy, when I feel like I have so much on my plate, but I don't really know where to start, I begin by clearing the decks. Often I'll clear out my emails because having that in the back of my mind stresses me out. I might do a big brain dump of all of my to-dos. I'm probably gonna tidy my room so that my head feels clear. And then I'm prioritizing my to-do list. And sometimes when you are in that state of like, oh, I don't know what to do, I have so much on my plate, you're like, I don't have time to be prioritizing. But the reality is that you don't have time not to be prioritizing. Don't try harder, try differently. Do you know how some people with anxiety have talked about how they hate when people say things like, just chill out, just don't think about it so much, just relax, just don't be so anxious. And it's infuriating advice because if you could, you would. That's how I feel about the advice to try harder, which is usually advice that we give ourselves when we're struggling. I can't seem to get things done. I just need to try harder. I can't seem to be consistent. I just need to try harder. I'm not trying hard enough. What does that actually mean? If you could try harder, you would, but you're not. So instead, think about trying differently. Whenever you find yourself struggling with honestly anything in your life, not just things related to time management, consider how you could try differently instead of telling yourself that you should simply try harder. Think, what could I do differently? What could I experiment with? How could I make this more enjoyable? What could I remove from my life to make this easier? How could I automate this? Literally anything is better than just try harder. Control your environment before you control yourself. So even before you get to that question of what can I do differently, ask what could my environment do differently for me? Studies on highly successful people have proven again and again that success is not the result of strong willpower and the ability to overcome resistance, but rather the result of smart working environments that avoid resistance in the first place. For example, I used to delete all of my social media apps, so I do that of a nighttime and re-download them at some point in the next day. And obviously sometimes I would forget to do that and then I get sucked down social media holes. Then I downloaded an app that literally blocks apps during certain times that you set. Now I don't have to use self-control because my environment controls things for me. Don't take on new opportunities without accepting the trade-offs. When you say yes to a new project of work, you're saying no to other potential projects at work. When you're saying yes to creating one type of product for your business, you're saying no to creating another type of product for your business. When you say yes to focusing on one specific niche, you are saying no to focusing on a bunch of other different niches. I really like Julian Kamer's statement that he uses to help when it comes to accepting trade-offs. He calls it an even over statement. So a good thing, even over another good thing. For example, stress-free days over last-minute, well-paying brand deals. Working on important projects, even over responding to emails quickly. Planning and reflection, even over action. Trade-offs that aren't made consciously lead to resentment. You take on a project and then later on you realize that that project means that you're not going to be able to keep up with your consistent upload or blog schedule. Then you feel like you're failing, even though when you accepted that project, that technically was a trade-off that you made, even though it wasn't conscious. Before you say yes to something, understand what you're also saying no to. If you liked this video, you'll probably like my video on 10 time management tips, and those are the time management tips that are a bit more tangible than the rules that I've talked about in this video. Those are more so like the strategies or the approaches that I have when it comes to managing my time. I'm gonna have that video on the screen as well as down below. I appreciate you so very much and I will see you soon.